Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jeremy Blair.
And I'm Ryan Wayland. So, Jeremy, if you had a genie, what would be one of your wishes?
We should be for infinite genies.
Because that takes care of the first wish. It also takes care of the second wish. More friends. Dude, you've exposed me to a lot of stuff that I greatly appreciate, and exposing me to James Acaster, I don't think I'll be ever be able to thank you more, because dude, he's so fucking funny. And then as I was watching Repertory, I was like, I see why Jeremy likes this guy. Like, a lot of his delivery is kind of like how you deliver bits.
It's very dry. It's very silly, but I like his because it's like there's layers to each thing. I mean, there's multiple reasons why it's funny. It's there's commitment throughout an entire set. He does this little, it's a small throwaway thing in one of the segments where he talks about his shirt pocket and how and at the very end he pays it off by putting the thing in his shirt pocket. I mean,
yeah. And of course I love his Pat Springleaf bit. Shit cracks me up. He calls me to his office and he goes, Springleaf! That's my real name, by the way. Pat Springleaf. I told you today I started listening to his podcast, and the fact that he keeps pausing the Wire recording to add in context,
it
cracks me up. And I love with Officer Adams, he's like, can I have a Skittle? No. Yeah, dude, it cracks me up. And then I finished Heckler's Welcome last night. And I really liked that. As where Heckler's Welcome was, I guess, more of like your traditional stand-up, I still like that it had a lot of his dry. Like, I love the bit that he's just holding the mic stand the entire time.
Does not acknowledge that he's holding the mic stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I kind of want to make Ashley watch Repertory, because I think she would find the humor in it as well. Because I've already kind of started with the whole, like, the Infinite Genies thing, and then the Pat Springfield. But I'm like, you really got to watch this to see how truly funny this is.
I mean, it's something I've watched for years and years. I've seen the whole thing maybe 5 times. It's so funny, and it's not dated. A lot of stand-up is dated. Truly funny, and it taught me a lot, which is silly, but it taught me a lot of British culture, because I didn't know what a lollipop man was. I had to look that up. It's a crossing guard. They call it lollipop men or lollipop women, which is ridiculous, because it looks like they're holding a lollipop. Because it's
interesting.
So that's he talks about being a lollipop man. That's what he's saying.
So I kind of developed context clues. I'm like, okay, he must be like a public servant or something.
Yeah, crossing guard. That's all it is. Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah, no, I can't recommend James Acaster enough. His season of Taskmaster is hilarious. So that's free on YouTube. Go check out. I forgot what season that was. It was maybe 7 or 8 or so. It doesn't matter. But he's on there. And Nish Kumar, who is in the podcast you're listening to. He's the comedian who loves drugs. They're friends. We're currently watching his season right now on Taskmaster. Nish Kumar is hilarious also.
Nice. Yeah. Well, welcome back, everyone. So, Jeremy, where have we been since Blade Runner?
I have been both sick and taking care of little Miss Maya. She's got the sniffles, and so we took her to the pediatrician. She doesn't have RSV or the flu. She just has a cold. So, but
yeah, it is really interesting how I got the flu shortly after we released the Blade Runner episode, and I was really worried I wasn't gonna be 100% for this episode, and then you guys got sick.
Yeah. I never. I mean, I did have a cold or something, and then, and then like I had food trouble, and it was bad. I am a tummy ache survivor for sure. And then little Miss Lady got sick. So maternity leave. We have a platform here, so I'm going to go ahead and stand on a soapbox real quick. Maternity leave is a scam, and Haley no longer, since maternity leave, has any time off. So if she were to take time off of work, it would be unpaid because she had to deplete all of her vacation, all of her personal, all of her sick time for maternity leave. So, and lots of businesses do this. It's not just a higher ed thing. It's lots and lots of places make you do that. So I took time off of work last week to take care of our little one, and I felt bad because she couldn't take time off.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. Yeah, I the worst of it when I had the flu was the day I was told I was positive, and then that following Friday, awful. Like the worst of it was just the body aches and the body chills. I was like, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
I just want to wallow in. But then by Saturday, I had a little bit more energy. I didn't have body aches or body chills anymore. So I got over it pretty quickly. Well, I mean, they cleared me to go back to work that following Tuesday. So I called in Thursday, and then I was back at work on Tuesday.
Oh. Bummer.
Yeah.
I guess that's good, I suppose.
Well, mom was like, she's like, what are you going to do with those hours? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you're losing hours. Like, I was like, Mom, I have sick time. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, it's all Gucci.
Yeah, like, we get more every month.
Yeah. And then I even put this into perspective for her. I was like, Mom, I'm literally going to get paid to go to Disney. So there we go. Yeah. Well, with that being said, of where the hell we've been since Blade Runner, Jeremy, would you like to remind everyone what we're doing today?
Yes. Today, we are beginning our end of season series, which this season is my pick. We are doing 4 movies, each by a film director who has only directed one movie. So this is their one and only. We're calling it the one and done series. And to kick off, we are discussing Charles Laughton's 1955 film, The Night of the Hunter.
So I remember you telling me about this movie all the way back in season 1. Like episode, it was episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because episode 1 we talked about Quentin Tarantino, and then episode 2 I had our buddy Alex on, and then I think I had you back for episode 3 where we discussed noir films.
Yeah.
And I remember you bringing this movie up, and I don't remember a whole lot from back then, but I do remember you saying how great this film was, but also how terrifying it was. But again, how great it was. And then years later, I watched Do the Right Thing, and I remember texting you, like, "Hey, I finally saw Do the Right Thing. That was awesome." And you were like, "Yeah, did you catch the little Night of the Hunter reference?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And you were like,
Radio
Raheem's Love and Hate. And now that I've seen this movie, he does the whole thing.
Yeah.
so finally getting to see this movie and getting to see its influence is really crazy, especially considering um, why we're doing this season, this end of season series.
Yeah, I don't remember how I found out. This is one of the few times where it's not Cinefix. I don't know how I found out about the movie. It was probably, there used to be a YouTube, not a YouTube page, a Facebook page I used to follow called Taste of Cinema. I don't think that they exist anymore. But every day, or every week or whatever, they would post a list of like the top 10 whatever movies, or what, and they would get pretty specific. That's how I found out about the Wolf House. That's how I found out about a bunch of stuff. I don't know. But I believe that's where I found out about Night of the Hunter, and I think The Killing was also on that list. I remember I bought them at the same time. It was a very expensive day at Barnes & Noble because it wasn't during the Criterion sale, and I bought them both at Criterion. And I was so excited, and I watched them both that day. And yeah, The Night of the Hunter was so interesting because you're right. It's very scary. It's very dark. There's a lot of influence from German Expressionism. It's also kind of funny. There are moments in here that are genuinely funny and are funny on purpose, I think. And it's very dreamlike, and it's not typical of 1955 filmmaking, and so no wonder people didn't like it. I mean, you watch it now and you think, well, what else came out in 1955? And you kind of look and you're like, I get it. I understand why people didn't respond to this positively, because it's sort of breaking a lot of traditional conventions. But I guess before we get to that, we should probably give a quick synopsis.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we have, in a quaint small town, we have the Harper family. Ben Harper has stolen a bunch of money, $10,000 to be exact, and hides it in his house before he gets arrested, and tells his kids where the money is. Okay, and swears them to secrecy. Please do not tell anyone, not even your mother, where that money is. Okay. Of course, it's Peter Graves. I don't know if you recognized him. He
looked familiar.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of stuff, but I think probably most well known for people our age, he's one of the pilots in Airplane.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So
okay, sorry. Right. Continue.
So anyway, these kids now are in possession of this money, and they know where it is. And in the jailhouse, Ben's cellmate is Harry Powell. Harry Powell is a self-proclaimed preacher and serial killer. He goes around killing people in the, quote, name of God, and enjoys the power and the murder, mostly killing women. Right? And he finds out about the money, as Ben talks about it in his sleep. And when he gets out of prison, he goes and finds the family, marries the mother, and sort of takes over the town in a way. They're taken by his charisma and his faux holiness. And all the while, he is still trying to track down this money. The kids escape after their mother is murdered. And they escape down the river, and it's a whole very strange, surreal sequence. They end up at this woman's house. She takes in lost and abandoned children. She kind of whips them into shape. Harry, right? Yeah. Harry Powell tracks them down, finds them, and her name is Rachel, sorry. And Rachel Cooper, the old woman, defends the children, defeats Harry, and no one gets the money, and everyone lives happily ever after.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the Night of the Hunter. Now, I think to talk about the movie as a whole, we need to talk about why I think it's so odd and why it doesn't feel very traditional. It doesn't feel of the time. There's something off, yet not in a bad way, just in an interesting, compelling way. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the artificiality of everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like they're in a real place. The outside of homes look fake. They all look like facades, right? Which they are in a lot of ways. The German expressionist esque type architecture that's especially in their home is very odd and off-putting and very strange. Like the angles are so weird and they don't really match the outside, and it seems like it's too small to live in. Also, like it doesn't feel like you could live in that house, especially the basement. And then you have the whole river sequence where things are almost outwardly artificial and fake, right? Like it's almost like he wants you to know they're on a stage. He wants you to know that this river's fake and that these plants aren't real. And he, that forced perspective shot with Harry Powell on the horse in silhouette in the background was done with a pony and a little person, and they just had they had him closer, and but anyway, there are shots like that are sort of strange and dreamlike, and as a whole, it's weird, it's strange. Why? It's and a lot of it's because this is sort of like a fairy tale. This is especially through the eyes of the children, this is it's more fairy tale logic and dream logic. Like they're constantly moving down the river at a constant pace. It's very slow, but still. Harry Powell is taking breaks and he's stopping and he's sleeping overnight and all of that, and he's still hot on their tail. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, right? But it's fairy tale logic, right? But I think at the time, I cannot believe that even though the film was panned and disregarded and seen as trash and whatever, I can't believe it didn't, become like this amazing masterpiece sooner, just because of Robert Mitchum. I mean, he's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the whole time I was watching the film, I was like, this guy is genuinely terrifying. Kind of for me on par with like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. Like you can tell there is just something so broken within him. Of course, we as the audience know he's a psycho. But in how Robert's portraying him, you can tell what he thinks. He thinks what he's doing is righteous and what God wants him to do. And it's just it's so scary to see someone truly believe their own delusions.
Sure. Yeah.
And you're right. And, he pretty much takes over this town. Also, I just need to get this off my chest real quick. I do not like Icy whatsoever. She pisses me off. How fucking dare she tell Willa Harper what she can and can't do with her kids? Because, look, yes, Harry's very charming and charismatic, and he wins over this town seemingly overnight, which again, like you said, it's fairy tale logic. So of course he would win this town over.
Yeah.
But Icy fucking helps, dude. Like let's not forget that. She sells how holier than now this fucking preacher is.
Right.
And it pisses me off, dude. Like every time she was on screen. Ooh.
Now, this movie is not without its flaws. I will say that, because you're right. Icy is, yeah, she's obnoxious because she is, you know, a devout Christian, and she is very conservative. And of course, when someone who claims to be a preacher comes in, of course, you know, she's going to want to become close to that person, right?
Yeah.
However, I think Willa's character, I think the only criticism I have with the movie is her transformation is too quick. It's too fast.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, there was no indication that Ben Harper would have been sort of this controlling abuser, because that would make sense if she goes from one abuser to the other. Of course, she's going to latch on to anything that they do, and she's going to be very subservient and very, you know, willing to change parts of her personality to whatever. But there was no indication that Ben was like that, and so the fact that she, you know, just
gets
sucked
in the sauce
so fast, right? And so that would be my only criticism.
Well,
artist, I laughed, which there's not a lot of funny moments. But
I know which part.
When she finds the switchblade in his coat pocket,
and
she goes, "Man," and she puts it down. Genuinely, I laughed out loud. It was, and I was supposed to. I don't think that, you know, this wasn't one of those cheesy, like, old movie acting choices that didn't age well. I think it was a joke on purpose.
See, I thought you were referring to when she looks directly down the barrel of the camera and cracks a smile like she's trying not to laugh.
No.
Yeah, no, okay. I agree. Willa's 180 it's too fast, and you're right. It's almost like we're meant to believe that she's so in shock of learning that Ben is dead. That she really will believe anything that comes along. Now, I do want to pose, not necessarily theory, just maybe a little context for her 180. I feel like time has progressed from when Harry first arrives to when they get married. Because well, hang on. Now that I'm saying it out loud,
because I mean, there's got to be some time to pass. I mean, it's not literally overnight. I mean, it does take a little bit of time, but not much. And you know, I can, you know, logically I understand. You know, it's a very small town. It's the 1930s in this movie. And so the Depression is in full swing, and so, like, I'm thinking, you know, people are desperate. She, of course, is emotionally fragile and vulnerable because of her husband, who not only went to jail but is now dead. And, you know, so she is sort of easily manipulated by someone who is very authoritative, charismatic, right, and influential. So I can see that. I mean, it's just a little jarring because the movie, of course, is at a breakneck pace, and so, like, it's just like from one scene to the next, she's just completely different, and completely smitten with this man, and it seems odd to me, but, you know, I just need to just be along for the ride.
Well, and I think it's really to show also Harry's power,
right,
of being able to kind of sell himself to people. The fact that she's preaching alongside of him, and um, expressing that like she's her sin drove Ben to steal this money and kill these men. Insane. But again, I think it's to show how much power and how much authority Harry has.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to say, John, awesome character. Pearl, I also found very annoying. Not as annoying as Icy.
No.
But when she's cutting the money, oh my god.
I'll give her a pass because she's little, but I will say that was, I guess, I don't know, like I don't want to call things criticisms because I do love this movie, but the fact that I understand that she has no reason to dislike Harry in the beginning, so of course she's going to gravitate towards him. Again, he's very charismatic, so I completely understand that. However, after they escape, and he's shown his true colors, and he threatened to kill John and in front of her, and very graphically. But yet, when he shows up at
Rachel's house,
when he shows up at Rachel's house, she immediately goes in for a hug, and I'm like, I don't know that I don't get, right? She's not that stupid.
And
she's not that little. Like, she's not that little that she doesn't remember.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, here's the other thing too. The same could be said for Ruby.
Yeah.
But yeah, John. I found it so interesting that we're really seeing this movie through John's eyes, and wanting to hold true to his promise that he made to Ben. But also kind of playing a game of cat and mouse with Harry.
Yeah.
Like I like the little the little smirk he was trying to hide when Harry's like, your daddy done told me that he took that money and it's at the bottom of the river, and he's like, oh, so you don't know.
Yeah.
And he's trying to hide it. And and I just found it really interesting, because more recently, I've kind of found that I really enjoy a very adult story, but told through a child. To give a modern example, Star Wars new show Skeleton Crew is that. These kids going on a fantastical journey, and Jude Law's character, not to get too spoiler in case anyone listening, Zach, is wanting to watch it. Jude Law's character is also very terrifying, especially towards the latter half of the season. But we're seeing this through the kids' eyes, and I don't know, like I really liked that we were so hyper focused on John and seeing him try to outsmart this man who, I'll be honest, Harry's got, he's 2 or 3 steps ahead of most people. Yeah. But it seems like he can't get the drop on John. It takes physical violence to get what he wants.
Yeah.
But I really like that. It I felt like it was really, again, it kind of heightened the scary aspects of it, but also cut through it too.
Yeah, it would also explain sort of the fantastical elements of the film, like, again, that whole sequence of them on the boat on the river.
Yeah.
It explains why the stars are so artificial looking, and why it's going so slow, and why Harry hasn't caught them yet. And even, it's interesting because there is this sort of, again, dreamlike surrealism to it all, because Harry somehow can't get the drop on these kids, like even in the basement, Like,
Yeah.
there's that scene that's also very funny, and I believe on purpose, when he's almost doing a Frankenstein's monster thing, where his arms are stretched out and he's reaching for them and still can't get them, and he's moving so slow, and it's bizarre.
Yeah.
And again, I believe it's deliberate. I don't think it's I don't think it's an experience. I don't think it's camp. I don't think that it's sort of like, we need an excuse for the kids to get away, so let's make him slow. I don't think that's it. I think it's all just like a fairy tale. It's all just it's all a dream, basically. It's so otherworldly and strange and weird, and again, no wonder people didn't like it. I get it.
Yeah.
Most people love it now, but back then,
Yeah.
I don't think people got it. And Charles Laughton is, doing something on a different level. I think if, let's say it's 1955, you go to the movies, and everyone knows who Robert Mitchum is at this point. And so you're excited and blah, blah, blah. And then you see this shot of a dead woman underwater. And it is the most haunting thing you've ever seen. It is stunning. Seeing it for the first time all those years ago, I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is on another level.
Yeah. Yeah, I meant to look it up today because I was like, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Because, in modern film, when you want to shoot on water, they have ways for the camera to go underwater and film, look at, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. All the underwater sequences were actually filmed underwater. But in the 50s, you couldn't take a film camera underwater, and so I think it's insane how they pulled it off. Because at first I was like, no, it's not underwater. But the more I was looking at the scene, the more I was like, no, it's
underwater.
It's underwater.
I don't know if it was because he's moving within the space, so it's not like he's on it's not like it's a tank and he's on the other side of it. I think the camera is underwater. I just don't know how they did it. I think it's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and I thought the same thing with the aerial shots. I had never seen aerial shots in most of the films we've done from the 40s and the 50s. Like, this is just the first one that came to my mind, Ministry of Fear. Mm-hmm. I do not remember any aerial shots being in Ministry of Fear.
I mean, it wasn't uncommon. It's expensive. There's a sequence in the beginning of The Aviator, where Howard Hughes is shooting, I think it's called Hell's Angels. I forgot what movie he's shooting, but he just strapped cameras to the planes.
Which would explain the shaky cam.
And so he was able to get aerial shots that way. And this is a terrible example, especially now, but it's one of the few examples I can give you in the 1940s of an aerial shot, and it's Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will. Sorry. But there's the opening of that film is an aerial shot, and Leni Riefenstahl, she's a terrible person. I'm not condoning any of that, but it's one of the examples.
I was like, what are you talking about? I just looked it up. Yeah,
I watched it in film school, or in college, in my film class.
I was gonna say, why?
I didn't go to film school. I in my film studies classes, we watched that. And as problematic as he was, he was able to do a lot of cool stuff. Anyway, so not impossible, but it's difficult. And especially with someone's first film. Again, Charles Laughton was mostly known for his acting and his stage work. after this, of course, he never made a movie again. And I kept getting conflicting things about that because I kept seeing either he didn't like directing, he thought it was, he would rather be an actor. He much preferred that after this experience. And then I also heard that it was just devastating that people hated it. That people hated Night of the Hunter and they didn't understand it, or they thought it was trash or too pulpy or too whatever. And that discouraged him, and he never made a movie again. I can see either way. I assume being a movie director is very hard. So if you're used to being an actor and you step into this directing role, I assume it's quite a difference. So,
well, and I would agree to that. Watching all the behind the scenes footage I've watched of virtually every movie I've ever seen, especially to use like the trilogy that we did earlier this season of Lord of the Rings, watching the hell that Peter Jackson went through to give us these movies. I would assume, being a director is hard. I'm sure it's fun and rewarding, but it's hard. And I watched recently an episode of Criterion, In the Closet. I don't remember who it was, but they had picked a movie off the shelf, and there's again, I don't remember the movie, and I don't remember who was in the closet, but they had said that that sometimes actors can make really good directors.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, look at like George Clooney.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Even, maybe he hasn't had some good ones recently, but Ben Affleck,
Yeah.
But yeah, it does make me wonder if, Charles, maybe getting more criticism as a director than an actor was a little bit too harder for him to handle.
Yeah.
Or maybe he didn't like it. Because I did want to look it up as to why he never directed again. But yeah.
And unfortunately, he died before anyone recognized the genius of Night of the Hunter. Again, there are shots in here that are just breathtaking. Not only the underwater shot, but also just the shots like in the basement. The shot of Harry, talking to Willa in the bedroom. I mean, those shadows.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's even though it's. Yeah. I was just about to say, even though that's terrifying, that I do really like that shot when he stands up and his head and neck are just cast in shadow.
Yeah.
And then you see him reach up and grab that. Dude, I was like, that's gorgeous.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's basically, in that moment, he's recreating like Caligari, with set design and with the shadows and everything. I mean, it's amazing. I personally love the artificiality of everything. I think that it lends to the story. I don't think it takes anything away. I think that, everything sort of seems unreal, makes the situation a little bit more uneasy that we find ourselves in. Because, we haven't even mentioned that, our main antagonist is trying to murder children.
Yeah.
It's... Yeah. So again, you're going to the movies, 1955. I understand why that's not sitting well with people also, but, it's a big swing. And this movie is based on a novel. I don't know how true it is to the source material. Obviously, the visual language of the movie can't, we're not going to get that through the book. So, I mean, the book is obviously going to be a vastly different experience just because this visually is so striking and so different and so uncanny that is lending to the story in a unique way that the book can't, obviously. Yeah, I mean, he threatened to like chop John up into like little pieces. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Threatens to cut his tongue out, and
Yeah.
threatens to
Crazy.
break Pearl's arm.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy, and it's menacing and disturbing and unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah, it's, again, with some of the other movies we've done from the 50s and some of the movies I've watched on my own, like, hang on, I don't want to fuck this up because I know you love this movie. I want to make sure I get the year
Hey,
right.
buddy, can you get her face? Thank you.
Okay. When I did Limelight,
Yeah.
When my kind of solo episode while you were, not with me,
I don't know where I was.
that was 52. So, it was, yeah, I forgot the point I was making, dude. Oh, it just that, yeah, this film was vastly different from anything I'd seen or we'd done for the show.
Yep.
And I haven't seen a lot of films from the 50s, but man,
yeah, it's just different. Yeah, and again, The Killing came out I think the same year, or maybe it was just the following year. But in terms of noir, in terms of crime dramas, I mean, they couldn't be more different.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting that this is considered a noir, but it makes sense because, we do have, a robbery that happens at the beginning of the movie that we don't see. We've got a treasure that needs to be found, and we've got someone who wants the treasure. I will say, this is kind of sidebar from the point I was just making. I was taking guesses as to where the money was.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't think we would ever find out, or at least until the very end. But I do really like the fact that Charles Laughton tells the audience this is where the money is.
Yeah.
Because my anxiety then went through the fucking roof.
Yeah.
Because he's been around that doll the entire time.
Yeah, if you don't know where the money is, there's no tension. There's no reason to be nervous when he's around certain things, right? So, like, if you know it's in the doll, anytime he's around the doll, you're like, oh my god, it's right there, And if you think about it, it's just money, The family didn't have it before; they're not using it now, So it doesn't really matter if it's gone, but you just don't want him to have it.
Yeah, because I will say, like yourself, I did really love this movie. I guess my criticism is the pact altogether.
Mm-hmm.
That Ben makes them swear that they will not tell anyone. Because here's my thing. Obviously, he knew he was going to jail because he tells John, "They're coming to get me. I'm going to be leaving." I'm assuming he probably knew he was going to hang. Wouldn't he want his family to use that money?
You would think so. But I think if, I don't know. I mean, now we got to make some implications about the relationship that he had with Willa, yeah. That maybe she would just turn it in, I mean, look,
maybe
things around,
Yeah.
A whole bunch of lame busybodies. So
I mean, that's true. I mean, dude, man, if fucking Icy found out, bro, if I haven't said it enough, I do not like Icy.
Her name is Icy Spoon. That's all you need. You know what I mean?
Well, and it pisses me off. Hang on, it pisses me off that Walt, her own husband, middle of the fucking movie, did not have a good feeling about Harry.
Yeah.
But she berates him so hard that he had to let it go.
Yeah, she sucks.
Yeah, dude. And then at his fucking trial, when it's finally revealed that he killed Willa and it's always been about finding this money, then she's like, lynch him. Like,
Yeah, I don't.
I felt this same rage for Lee Cobb in 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
But I kind of understood where Lee Cobb was coming from. I don't fucking understand where Icy's coming from, dude.
Yeah,
God.
Yeah, I think I choose to believe that the one-dimensional aspect of some of these characters, I like to think it's on purpose. I don't think that it's like cheap,
I mean,
lazy. I think that her being this
no.
way and no nuance. I think that that's on purpose.
No, I agree, and I just
But it's frustrating.
it just irritates me so much because again, I'm 90% certain that Icy's whole fucking you need to go talk to that preacher about the money, is she kind of drove Willa to down this road with Harry.
Yeah.
Especially because we get the fucking shot of her telling the other women, Icy telling the other woman, there's no business a woman should be raising those kids alone. Like, bitch, get out of her business. Uncle Bertie's there to help. It's all good. We haven't even mentioned Uncle Bernie, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, Bertie really doesn't come through at the end anyway, so it's all good.
We also kind of haven't mentioned that this movie is kind of also a musical.
Oh yeah.
There are multiple songs.
A real Amelia Prez move there.
These aren't like non-diegetic songs. This isn't like typical musical numbers, but there are multiple songs. There's that one in the park. There's the one that the little girl, her name I already forgot, Pearl. She sings it on the boat. There's the duel, the song duel that Rachel and Harry have, which is kind of bizarre. Also, it's like, why are people singing?
Yeah.
It does again give this otherworldly fairy tale storybook sort of feel to it, and that they're sort of they're these biblical songs, and but a lot of at least some of the songs, the one that Pearl sings begins with "Once Upon a Time," and I know that John tells her a story, and it begins with "Once Upon a Time," and that phrase pops up quite a bit in the movie. Again, to lend to this, dreamlike storybook sort of narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I saw the singing, especially from Harry, as sort of like his version of the calm before the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of like his ritual. There we go.
Yeah.
His ritual, he's gonna sing this song right before he kills someone. Now, granted, he sings the song quite a bit, and the couple times when he sings it, no one dies. But I think it is sort of like his ritual to, I guess, maybe get him in the mindset of what he's about to do. I don't know.
Yeah, the songs are just an interesting choice. I mean, I like it. It doesn't take me out of it by any means. I think it lends to the characters, and it makes sense. I kind of like the singing duel that Rachel and Harry have. I think that it's it's bizarre, but it's an interesting sort of game of wits, or like this chess match they're doing. It's weird, but I like it. And I just had a thought.
Okay.
While we were talking, because I was like, I love this movie very much, and I love just the visual style of it. And I think I didn't even put this together, but the shot, and I believe it's when Harry first shows up to the town. It's at night, and his shadow is cast through the window. His silhouette with his hat. In the kids' room, and it's terrifying, right? Like, it is a looming presence over their lives that is going to take over, their livelihood and basically change and destroy their life, right? It now reminds me, it's the opening shot of M. It's, when...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when Peter Lorre shows up at the very beginning, and his silhouette is over the wanted poster, with the little girl and the bouncy ball. No wonder I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it truly is terrifying. I was talking to my buddy Brandon while I was watching the movie, and he was like, "Oh, like what are y'all doing for the show?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's this movie called Night of the Hunter. It's terrifying." And he remembers that I don't like horror films. Of course, now I've gotten much more used to them and am now willing to go see a horror film. And he's like, "Bro, why do you do this to yourself, man? You know you don't like horror films." I'm like, "I know, but it's not scary in the horror sense." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Dude, I'm about to give you a single sentence description and you'll see why." And I said, the story's following a preacher trying to kill these two kids to get to $10,000. And he goes, "Yeah, okay, yeah, that is pretty terrifying." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it's," and then I explained to him why we were doing it. And he was like, "Really? This is this director's only film?" I'm like, "Yeah, apparently." Yeah, apparently it was panned so hard he did not make another film.
Yeah.
Of course, you and I just theorized it could be any reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was so scary, but I mean, of course it would have a happy ending,
Yeah.
This is sort of the as we kind of talked about with was it Fury or Ministry of Fear that they had to change the ending? It was Ministry of Fear.
I think it was Fury. They had to change the ending.
That's right. Yeah, because he had to get the girl
right
at the end or something. Yeah. This is kind of during that time of Hollywood, and so I knew we were going to have a happy ending. But I still felt like it wasn't like Ministry of Fear where the happy ending is sort of put upon.
Right.
It truly did feel like kind of like when we did Good Time. We can now finally breathe and like know that these kids are safe.
Yeah, and it was interesting to have Johnny sort of just give up the money too, just be like, "It's too much. I can't handle it. It's too much pressure. I want it gone."
Yeah. Now I do have a question because I can feel us getting closer to the wrap up.
Yeah.
But I want to bring this up before we wrap up and tease episode 2 of our end of season series. I do find it interesting, though, that he doesn't testify against Harry.
Yeah.
Even though he knows everything he's done. He knows he's guilty. He knows he's killed his mom. And I was reading after I finished the movie that he is sort of traumatized from seeing Ben get arrested.
Yeah.
That even though he knows Harry is this awful looming figure in his life, it kind of triggers that. But it's still, I don't know. I would feel like even though at the trial he would kind of work out of that,
Yeah,
and testify
I
against
think
him.
it's just like, he sees being arrested as, going away forever. Like it's like this sort of weird um this weird situation where you go with them, you don't come back. And yeah, you're right. He's very traumatized with his dad, and of course, his dad. It's very complicated because he also gave him this burden of this money and the secret, which is very stressful. And so he probably internalized all of that to that one moment, and so it brought all of those feelings back. And I'm sure that that he was sort of unresponsive during the trial. Um, sort of just lends to the trauma um, that he got from, these horrifying situations he's found himself in.
Yeah. Well, sort of that, Ben kind of put them in.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm sure Ben didn't know that his cellmate was going to get out and try to, kill his kids, but,
right.
But yeah, yeah, I don't know. I just found it interesting that even at the trial, he couldn't bring himself to testify against Harry.
Yeah.
Although I do like to believe that Harry didn't get out of this. Obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved to have that closure,
sure.
that he did get hanged, but I guess the line of the hangman being like, "Can't wait to see it,"
Yeah.
I guess was enough,
Yeah, like they're excited. So
yeah. Yeah. But with that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
Yeah, we didn't really touch on Rachel in the foster home too much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's fine because it's sort of a safe haven. It's the classic good versus evil in this case. Rachel is obviously a maternal figure and a savior, and she's their protector, and it is not at all fooled, right, by Harry, no matter what he says. She knew immediately he's not a real preacher. That's insane, right?
Yeah.
Just like no. And yeah, I mean, I don't remember who it was, what her name was, but Haley's half paying attention at this point during the movie, and she kind of just looks up, and it was the eldest girl at the foster
home. Ruby.
Ruby, okay. She was like, "Oh, is she a slut or something?" Go, yeah. I was like, "Yeah."
I mean, kind of.
Yeah,
She's going down. She's going down to the ice cream parlor. Guys are buying her ice cream.
Yeah, that was upsetting, but.
Well, and then I gotta say though, with Ruby, and then like her whole "daddy, I love him" mentality towards Harry.
So weird.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's super creepy, and I mean, Harry's worse than we thought. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, he's also, cool with hanging out with little girls too. That's not cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that murder's also not cool, but that's definitely not cool either.
Yeah. No. He. Yeah. 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 I think it was really to hammer home, this is not a good person.
Yeah. If you were on the fence before that.
Yeah. If you thought him killing these two kids was okay, he's hanging out with this 13-year-old at an ice cream parlor.
Yikes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Apart from that, this movie is a complete game changer for filmmaking in the 1950s. I think that it's remarkably ahead of its time. I do understand why people didn't like it, but I'm so happy that it was revisited and reassessed and seen as the genius that it is, which is this sort of surreal fairy tale nightmare.
I agree. And all the reading I did about it, I did read that, it took years later for people to reevaluate the film and say that it is one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah.
Like that's something I actually read, that they consider it one of the greatest movies.
You can see why.
And
I mean, it's boundary setting. I mean, it subverts traditional filmmaking at the time.
Yeah, and it is a shame that Charles Laughton didn't get to live to see it become so beloved, and so, so I guess now timeless, especially with it, in the Criterion Collection.
Sure.
Yeah, but well, buddy. With that being said, what will be part 2 of our end of season series?
All right, so next week, probably, hopefully, Jesus Christ. Let's not.
Well, yeah, I hope so, because if I did my math correctly, when we do our bonus episode, that will be the week before we go to Disney.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Yeah. No one gets sick.
Nobody gets sick. No one take time off. Let's just get it done. Next week, we are discussing Dalton Trumbo's solo directorial effort in the 1971 anti-war surreal drama dream with Johnny Got His Gun. Dalton Trumbo, if you're not familiar, he was a screenwriter. He wrote Roman Holiday, Spartacus, Exodus, Papillon. He was a well-respected screenwriter, but he was also blacklisted. So his name wasn't on Roman Holiday until like the 2000s. Like his name was left off of it because of the blacklist, because of the McCarthyism and the Red Scare and all of that. So he was part of the Hollywood 10, which was a collection of screenwriters who were thought to be communists that were basically exiled from Hollywood. That is a way stripped down version of what that story is. But if you want to know more about Dalton Trumbo, I highly recommend looking some stuff up, or watch the Bryan Cranston film called Trump.
I knew Dalton Trumbo was one of the blacklisted screenwriters during McCarthyism, and I knew they'd made a biopic with Bryan. I'd never seen it. I'm really curious, to finally see a Trumbo film, because I don't think I'm pretty confident in saying I don't think I've seen any of his films. Here, let's take a look at his films real quick.
Well, while you do that, this is our second Timothy Bottoms film that we'll be doing. He was also one of the main characters in The Last Picture Show. And
oh, nice.
Yeah. And so he's in this movie. And again, this movie is so strange and so bizarre. And any Metallica fans out there will recognize the footage from the music video for One. They used Johnny Got His Gun for the visuals.
No, nice.
Yeah.
No, I have never seen one of Trumbo's films. Well, so this will be really cool to see.
Yeah, I really like this movie. Again, it's very weird. And as far as anti-war goes, I mean, it's pretty obvious. But
now, is it come and see obvious, or
it's a little, I don't know. It's the come and see is a more grounded, realistic take. This is more of a stylistic, sort of allegorical take, which I like.
Okay.
And everything just seems, dreamlike, which I didn't do that on purpose. I didn't pick two movies like that on purpose. But here's how surreal it is. is that there are parts of this film that are consulted and I think guest directed by Luis Buñuel, who co-directed Un Chien Andalou with Salvador Dali. He also directed The Exterminating Angel, Into Street Charming Bourgeoisie, a whole bunch of other stuff. Renowned avant-garde surrealist filmmaker. And so he was consulted for certain scenes of the film, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, man. I'm really excited because again, I know the history of Trumbo, so I'm really curious to see his directorial debut. But all right, everyone. Well, we hope you enjoyed part 1 of our end of season series on The Night of the Hunter, and we will see you next week for Johnny Got His Gun.